All right, Shalom.
Mom,
Um,
All right, first and foremost, we have to give all the praise, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh,
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 Bahashem,
Hashem,
Hashem,
Yahweh Shai,
Yahushua,
Yahushai,
Bahashem,
Ba'ashem,
Bahashem,
Ruka Kadash.
Rakakadash.
Rakakadash.
All right, double honors and respect to our apostles and elders, a great millstone, who rule and taught us His truth. I would also like to say peace and salutations to the Lord's elect, the hopeful elected in 1/3, Brother Salah.
But yeah, what's up?
Brother Sarah.
All all right. All right, and today's lesson, we are going to be talking about, the food crisis that is about to hit Babylon the Great, man. So like, so as we see, all this tension, rise across, across the world, especially in Babylon the Great, Caesar Nero, sending out his ice agents against the Northern Kingdom and the National Guard against the Southern Kingdom. We are in Jacob's trouble. We are in the beginning stage of Jacob's trouble. Caesar Nero,
Uh,
DJT, he's getting the 2/3, man. Man, in the midst of that, man, these prices, for food is starting to rocket, to skyrocket, right? And what else do we see that's happening around the world? The MOTB being implemented. It's being implemented in the UK. It's already being implemented in Sweden, and now they're implementing it in Russia. And with the rise of food. What do you what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? All this is leading up to? The tariffs. The broken supply chains. The scarcity of foods. And the rising prices, that's going to cause people to crash out on each other, man. And that's going to bring in that chaos, and what Esau's going to do, man, he's going to try to bring that order ab kill, that with that MOTB, that Karagma, right? So before we play the video, first we're gonna have our opening precept, Isaiah 19, starting at verse 1. The burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahshai rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. And I will set the Egyptian against the Egyptians; they shall fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, kingdom against kingdom. And the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof, and they shall seek to the idols, and to the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits, and to the wizards. And the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel lord. A fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yosai Sabaoth, meaning his armies. Right, right,
Come
right. Yeah. The book of Yahweh Sop posted here, book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry, and that's what we're seeing right now. Prophecy is popping off like popcorn, man. Man, it's like every not even every hour, man. Every minute, something's always happening, man. And
come.
it's like and whether or not it's a distraction from all the wickedness, that Esau's done, like with the Epstein files and all that. We know ultimately, man, it's the will of Yahweh Bashim Yahshua exposing these devils and causing prophecy to happen, man.
Captain Kirk.
Yeah, Captain Kirk, CK, the train stat, like all these school shootings, these like Esau's just getting sloppy, man. Like everyone's starting to figure this man out.
I got
Yeah,
another precept too. I don't know if y'all was still talking though.
Go ahead, Doc.
Was you still talking, Giuseppe, or was you
go ahead.
all right, kind. So I had Second Ezra 9:3. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and upwards of people in the world, then shalt thou will understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. For like all that is made in the world hath the beginning and the end is manifest. Even so the times also of the highest have plain beginning, and the wonders and powerful works, and the ending in effects and signs. And anyone that shall be saved and shall be able to escape by his works and by faith whereby we have believed. So that just ties into a little bit what's going on in the end times.
That's right off, man. We are witnessing the downfall of Esau Edom, man, the so-called white man. We're seeing the end of this devil's fucking kingdom, man. Again, before we play the video, we're gonna get the copyright disclaimer. So again, So so again, just so YouTube doesn't copyright this, and if it copyrights the music, we have the copyright disclaimer out. Disclaimer: copyright disclaimer to Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. We are not making any monetary gains off this. We're not making any money off of this, and we're not reading you any medical information. So with that, without any further ado, we're gonna play the video.
In the car? That's not paranoia. It's history repeating itself. In 1933, during the Great Depression, desperate families lined up in bread lines that stretched for blocks, clutching tin cups for a ladle of soup. Nearly a century later, in 2025, the bread line hasn't disappeared. It's just moved inside Walmart, Costco, and Kroger. The line is at the checkout, and the rationing happens in your cart. Back then, unemployment hit 25%, and families simply couldn't afford food. Today, unemployment sits under 5%. But what good is a paycheck when a gallon of milk costs $6, a loaf of bread $4, and a dozen eggs $5? In 1930, bread cost a nickel. Adjusted for inflation, that should be about $1 today. Instead, we're paying 4 times that. Hunger hasn't vanished. It's wearing a modern disguise. This isn't just inflation. It's a silent collapse of affordability. America isn't on the edge of history. We're living inside it. The Great Depression is no longer a chapter in the past. It's back, it's in your kitchen, and it's staring you in the face every time you shop for food. Let's start with the aisle every family knows best. Bread. The simplest food in the world, once the cheapest. In 2022, you could pick up a loaf of white bread for around $2.50. Today, it's $4.20. That's nearly double in just 3 years. Now ask yourself, did your paycheck double in the same time? And bread is just the beginning. Take milk, the backbone of...
All right, so let's actually to one precept, and I think your brothers might know what precept we're gonna bring out, because we discussed this before, but about a loaf of bread shall be worth a penny.
Galatians 6:6.
Yeah, that's right. So let's get this in the blue letter, because we are going to break down certain words. The apostles and elders have broken this down many times, but we're gonna keep breaking this down, because repetition is the father of skill. Revelation chapter 6 verse 6, and I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. Right. So let's go into the Strongs, and we're gonna see what that word penny means.
Strong's G 1220. Denarion. Denarion.
All right, denarian. So it is of Latin origin. So, containing 10. A Roman silver coin in New Testament time. It took its name from being equal to 10 asses, a number after 217 BC. It increased to 16 about 3.898 grams, or 0.1375 ounces. It was the principle of silver coin of the Roman Empire, from a parable of the laborers' vineyards. It would seem that a denarius was an ordinary pay for a day's wages, right? And that's the times that we're hitting in it. That we're fastly approaching. So basically, to buy a loaf of bread, it's going to cost you like a day's worth, or even a week's worth of salary, man. Maybe because of hyperinflation, tariffs, taxes, and broken supply chain, and the lack of bread, which we're gonna get later in the video. All right. So continuing on.
of every breakfast table. 2 years ago, a gallon cost $3.50. In 2025, it's breaking the $6 barrier in many states, with some cities seeing prices as high as $6.75. That's an extra $12 to $15 a month for families with kids. It doesn't sound catastrophic until you realize every item in the cart has followed the same trajectory. What about protein? Eggs, once the symbol of cheap nourishment, tell a brutal story. In 2022, a dozen cost $1.50. Now, $4.60 is common. That's more than a 200% increase. Families who rely on multiple cartons a week are suddenly forced to ration, a word we thought belonged to history books. Move to the meat section and the nightmare deepens. Chicken breast, America's go-to dinner protein, has climbed from $2.99 a pound to $5.50, almost doubling. Ground beef, past $7 a pound in many supermarkets. And the question writes itself, When the cheapest proteins become luxury items, what happens to working class diets? The answer is simple: they collapse. Families pivot to processed food, cheaper calories, and long-term health sacrifices. Even the small comforts aren't safe. Coffee, the morning lifeline for 150 million Americans, has surged from $5 a pound to $8, with premium blends crossing into double digits. Imagine starting every day with the reminder that even your caffeine is part of the crisis. This isn't just about numbers, it's about dignity. Grocery shopping used to be routine. Now it's a weekly stress test. Parents put back items at the register. Seniors on fixed incomes cut fresh produce in half. College kids skip meals outright. What once felt ordinary now feels like survival. If you think shopping smart will save you, think again. Even the cheap giants, the stores families once trusted to stretch a dollar, are now part of the crisis. Take Walmart, long advertised as the champion of low prices. In 2023, a 5-pound bag of flour cost $2. Today, that same bag is $3.50. That's a 75% jump. A 10-pack of frozen chicken breasts once sold for $10. Now it rings up at $15, a 50% increase on a single staple. Multiply that across a cart of 20 or 30 items, and the math is devastating. Costco, the warehouse giant, built its empire on bulk savings. But in 2025, even bulk is breaking budgets. A case of 24 canned tomatoes that sold for $18 just 2 years ago is now $25. That's $7 more for the same steel cans of tomato paste. Peanut butter, the giant tub that families relied on for kids' lunches, went from $7 to $10. It sounds small, $3 here, $7 there. But across a year of bulk shopping, that's hundreds of extra dollars draining out of already stretched wallets. Whole Foods, once mocked as whole paycheck, has turned into something even worse. A preview of where mainstream prices are headed. Organic apples that averaged $2 a pound in 2023 are now $3.50. Almond milk, once $3, has surged to $4.50 per carton. A family swapping dairy for plant-based products is now punished for the switch, paying $1.50 more per carton every single week. Kroger, Safeway, Publix. No chain has been spared. Analysts at Nielsen IQ reported that between January 2024 and January 2025, the average supermarket basket increased 12.8% nationwide. The Food and Agriculture Organization echoed the alarm, warning that global food prices in 2025 remain 30% above pre-pandemic levels. That's not a headline, it's a death sentence for working-class budgets. So where do families turn? Nowhere. Whether it's Walmart's everyday low prices, Costco's bulk savings, or Whole Foods premium organic, every logo tells the same story. Food costs are rising faster than paychecks, and the promise of affordability is dead. The grocery cart has become the new battlefield of American life. And no matter which store you push it through, you're losing money at every aisle. So why are grocery bills exploding like this? Why does every trip to the store feel like a financial ambush? The answer isn't just one thing. It's a chain reaction of inflation, broken supply lines, climate disasters, and government policies that hit wallets like hidden taxes. Let's start with inflation. Official reports from the Bureau of Labor Statistics show grocery prices rose another 11.2% in 2024, on top of a 13% increase in 2023. Stack those together and you're looking at nearly 25% inflation in just 2 years. Wages, meanwhile, crawled up only 4% annually. That's the math of disaster. Paychecks rising $2,000 a year while grocery bills jump $5,000. Families aren't just falling behind, they're drowning. Now, layer in Trump's new tariffs. In early 2025, sweeping tariffs on imports from China, Mexico, and Europe were billed as protecting American workers. But at the checkout counter, they feel like a food tax. Rice imports jumped 20% overnight, canned tuna surged 25%, and imported cheeses spiked nearly 30%. Even coffee beans, most of which come from abroad, rose another 15% in just 6 months. A family that once spent $20 a week on rice, seafood, and coffee is now paying closer to $30. That's $500 more a year, sucked straight out of household budgets by tariff wars. And tariffs don't just raise prices on imports, they trigger retaliation. Mexico slapped tariffs on US corn and beef. China taxed soybeans and wheat. The result? Farmers at home are squeezed, forced to pay more for fertilizer and feed, while shoppers pay more for the final product. It's a lose-lose cycle. The farm bleeds, the consumer starves. Then there's the supply chain, a term that sounds boring until you realize it's the invisible rope choking your grocery bill. Remember the pandemic shortages of 2020? Those never fully healed. Transportation costs are still inflated, cents a gallon nationwide. Shipping a truckload of produce from California's Central Valley to New York now costs 30% more than it did in 2022. That cost doesn't disappear. It's stamped into the price tag on every tomato, every apple, every head of lettuce. Climate disasters pile on top. The USDA reported that extreme droughts in the Midwest cut corn yields by 15% in 2024, while floods in California destroyed entire fields of strawberries and lettuce. Global wheat prices jumped 18% after poor harvests in Ukraine and Argentina. Food isn't just scarce, it's scarcer, and that scarcity writes dollar signs across grocery shelves. And while families struggle, corporations thrive. Major retailers aren't losing money, they're reporting record profits. Kroger's 2024 annual report showed net earnings up 22%, even as consumers screamed about inflation. Tyson Foods quietly raised meat prices by an average of 14%, pocketing billions in profit. A Harvard Business Review study called it greedflation, the practice of raising prices well beyond actual cost increases, simply because desperate consumers have no choice but to pay. Put all these forces together and the picture is chilling. Inflation strips paychecks. Tariffs act as stealth taxes. Climate disasters slash supply. Corporations fatten margins. Families, caught in the crossfire, watch their grocery bills morph into monsters. The grocery aisle is no longer a marketplace. It's a pressure cooker where global politics, corporate greed, and natural disasters converge. And every beep at the checkout scanner isn't just a transaction. It's a reminder that America's cost of living is spiraling out of control, with no off-ramp in sight. What happens when the price of survival climbs faster than paychecks? The answer is visible in kitchens across America. Families are skipping meals. Parents are quietly eating less so their children can have more. Seniors are choosing between groceries and prescriptions. And the data backs it up. A 2025 Feeding America report revealed that 1 in 4 U.S. households skipped meals at least once a week because they couldn't afford enough food. Compare that to just 1 in 10 households in 2019. The number has more than doubled in 6 years. The USDA's latest food security survey shows that 17 million American households now live with food insecurity, meaning they don't know if their next meal will be affordable. That's nearly 50 million people, a population larger than California, living on the edge of hunger in the richest country on earth. But it's not only about hunger, it's about what fills the plate. When milk is $6, eggs are $5, and chicken is $6 a pound, families don't stop eating, they downgrade. Fresh produce and lean proteins are replaced by processed fillers. Instant noodles, canned pasta, dollar menu fast food. A recent Harvard Public Health study found that 68% of lower-income families cut back on fresh fruit and vegetables in 2024, substituting cheaper, less nutritious options. The result is predictable: rising obesity, diabetes, and heart disease in communities already struggling to stay afloat. And then there's the mental cost. The American Psychological Association reported a 34% increase in anxiety and depression diagnoses linked directly to financial stress over food between 2022 and 2025. Imagine the daily strain. A mother putting back apples at checkout because she's over budget. A father working 2 jobs yet unable to afford a full week's groceries. A child who notices the fridge is always half empty. These aren't isolated anecdotes. They're a nationwide pattern of quiet desperation. Food banks, once the last resort, are now overwhelmed. In 2025, Feeding America's network of food banks reported distributing over 6 billion meals, a record high. Some centers report lines wrapping around city blocks, with demand up 40% compared to 2021. What looks like a modern bread line is exactly that. A digital echo of the Great Depression, but with cars waiting in drive-through donation lanes instead of men queuing with tin cups. And hidden beneath all this is debt. According to TransUnion, Americans put $68 billion worth of groceries on credit cards in 2024, an all-time high. Families aren't just buying food, they're financing it. Interest rates over 20% mean that a $200 grocery bill can balloon into $250 if not paid immediately. It's a vicious cycle: buy now, owe later, and sink deeper every week. The cruel irony? The United States wastes nearly 30 to 40% of its food supply annually, according to the USDA. While millions go hungry, billions of dollars worth of food rots in landfills due to supply inefficiencies and retailer overstock. It's a grotesque imbalance: scarcity at the checkout line, waste in the dumpsters. The human toll of this crisis cannot be measured.
Oh, so one thing I want to note on that, the fact that people can't even afford food, but yet people have to throw out all these extra foods in the dumpsters because people can't afford that. It goes to show you how greedy and imbalanced this devil is. And I believe if your brothers know what scripture I'm talking about. But there is a law that says like we would leave the the leftover vineyards out, for the poor. If you brothers could find that precept, Baba Kasha. Yeah. But but with that, I'll like to get the precept. And I like to bring out Proverbs chapter 29 verse 2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. And we wouldn't be having these issues, if corporations weren't greedy, weren't jacking up the prices. There is actually enough food to feed everyone, but the fact that corporations keep jacking up prices so they can make profit margins, right. They leave all these people to starve. While throwing out all this excess food. Just letting it rot. And throw it away in the trash. Right. Right. Goes to show you how unresourceful these fucking devils are, man. And. Oh, and the water, but the yellow sop, this is the book of Leviticus, chapter 19, verse 10. You shall not strip your vineyard bare, neither shall you gather the fallen grapes of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and for the sojourner. I am the Lord your God, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. when you gather the grapes of your vineyard, you shall not glean it afterwards. It shall be for the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. But but you see here, in Esau's kingdom, man, he wants to hog up everything, and leave nothing, for the homeless, right? In fact, we already know he's actually criminalizing the homeless, right? Right, he's throwing them in prisons, or through his media, right? He's outright, telling people, to outright kill homeless people, man. And it just goes to show you, man, how much of a fucking devil this man is, right? That's why we can't wait, to put this man in captivity, right? So, so a priest upon that, I'm gonna get, as he not stolen until he has Obadiah chapter 1 verse 5. If thieves came to thee, if robbers by net, how art thou cut off? That would they not have stolen until they had enough? If the grape gatherers came to thee, they would they not leave some grapes? And that exactly goes along with with Leviticus 19 with Leviticus 19 chapter 10 and Deuteronomy 24 verse 21, man. These fucking Edomites, man. They would take everything, man, and they wouldn't even leave anything for the poor, man. They would they would gather everything under themselves, and let everyone else starve, which is exactly what this devil's doing, man. The scriptures put it, man. He enlargeth his desire as hell. So let's get that. He enlargeth his. Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 5. Yeah. Also because he transgresseth by wine, meaning his philosophy, his way of life, right? He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, cannot be satisfied, but gather unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Well, shall not all these take up a parable against him, a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth, which that is not his. How long, and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. All right, and if you go to that word thick clay, Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 6, and we're gonna get that in the blue letter through 6. Yeah, the Hebrew word is
Strong's H 5671. Avtit.
It's actually Ibotnia in the Paleo Hebrew, right? And the meaning for that is actually heavy debts, right? Because that's pretty much the reason why Esau's raising up all these prices, right? Because his whole economic system is based off fractional reserve currency, and if you look at what fractional reserve currency, it's all based off a debt system, right? That all right. So let's get that. So let's find what is fractional reserve banking, right? So fractional reserve banking is a system where banks keep a portion of customer deposits and reserves and lend out the rest, which expands the money supply and stimulates economic growth. The process creates money because the money loan is often redeposited in other banks, allowing them to lend more money, which creates a money multiplier effect. So let me get this straight. It's a money multiplier effect, and we know this money's not even backed up by gold anymore because Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard. So what's the money based off on? Nothing pretty much, right? And eventually, right, we are reaching the point where the economy is gonna collapse, right? And once they collapse that economy, right, right, they're gonna implement that charagma, that micro right? And you already see them starting to do that in other countries, right? And we know Esau knows this is because the same thing pretty much happened in ancient Egypt, right? During the time of during the time of Joseph, when all right, Genesis chapter 47, starting at verse 15. And when the money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, Give us bread. Why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. And Joseph said, Give your cattle, and I'll give you cattle for cattle, if money fail. And they brought their cattle to Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses and for flocks and for cattle and herds and asses, and he fed them with bread for all the cattle that year. And basically that's what the elite are trying to do, man. They're basically trying to own everything, through all this debt that that they're building up, right? They're gonna default on all their debts. And when they do that, basically everyone has to owe them something. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna confiscate and they're gonna seize everyone's property because no one actually owns their property because people have to pay taxes on their property anyways. Even though if you pay off you pay off your house payments or your house mortgage entirely, you still technically don't own that house. Right. And once everyone receives that charagma, right, not like what this devil will do is he's gonna implement a UBI or universal basic income where he's gonna give you like a certain amount of money, and it's gonna be based off a social credit system, right? So basically, if you with that charagma, if you speak out or even think about rebelling against Esau, he'll just shut you down, and just off with you, man. That's why this devil has to go, man, because ultimately all this is to try to get that blessing back from Jacob, which is gonna be for naught. But we know what's gonna happen. When Esau tries, the micro see up his elect. Right. This is the book of Amos, chapter 9, verse 8. Behold, the eyes of the Lord Yahweh shall upon the sinful kingdom, and I will destroy it from the face of the earth, saving that I will not utterly destroy the house of Jacob, saith the Lord Yahweh shall. And him not utterly destroying the house of Jacob, that's talking about the remnant, the elect, the 144,000, and the 1/3 in Babylon, and the mixed multitude, scattered across the four corners of the earth, man. And those are the ones that they're gonna make it out of this chaos. Right. So with that, we're gonna finish up this video.
Measured in receipts alone. It's measured in skipped dinners, in children eating cereal for supper, in the silent anxiety of households living one bad week away from hunger. The grocery store is no longer just a place to shop. It has become the stage where America's inequality plays out in real time, with billions of dollars in profits on one side and empty refrigerators on the other. Where does this end? That's the question haunting economists, policymakers, and millions of families staring at shrinking grocery bags. If food prices rose 25% in just 2 years, what happens if the same trend continues into 2026? The answer is chilling. A middle-class America that looks less like the world's richest nation and more like a nation teetering on famine. Reports from the USDA forecast that food at home costs could rise another 7 to 9% in 2025, with staples like dairy and meat leading the surge. That means by 2026, a gallon of milk could pass the $7 mark, a carton of eggs could hit $6, and ground beef could settle near $9 per pound. For a family of 4, that translates into weekly grocery bills of $300 or more, or nearly $15,000 per year, an amount that rivals the cost of college tuition in many states. But the danger isn't only price, it's access. The USDA already designates 19 million Americans as living in food deserts, areas with limited access to affordable groceries. Analysts warn that number could climb past 25 million by 2026, as inflation forces supermarkets in poor and rural neighborhoods to close. When stores shutter, residents are left to rely on overpriced corner shops and fast food chains, locking entire communities into unhealthy, expensive diets. Debt is another ticking time bomb. In 2024, Americans charged $68 billion in groceries on credit cards. If interest rates remain above 20%, that could exceed $80 billion by the end of 2025, creating a generation of households financing food like they finance cars. Picture it, groceries bought in January still being paid off in July, with an extra 25% added in interest. That's not just unsustainable, it's catastrophic. And the tariffs are escalating. Analysts at Moody's warn that if Trump's 2025 tariff plan continues into 2026, food inflation could spike another 12 to 15%. Imagine a scenario where tariffs add $800 a year to the average family's grocery bill, on top of inflation's $5,000 increase. That's a hidden food tax larger than many Americans' entire utility bills. Global instability compounds the risk. Climate scientists warn that continued droughts in the Midwest and floods in California could slash yields of corn, wheat, and lettuce by 10 to 20% in 2026. The FAO projects that global wheat prices could climb another 15% if conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East persist. America doesn't live in a bubble. When global food prices jump, U.S. shoppers bleed at the register. The real fear? Hunger crossing into the suburbs. Food insecurity has long been associated with poverty in inner cities and rural towns. But in 2025, Pew Research shows that 41% of suburban households report cutting back on groceries due to costs. By 2026, the image of hunger won't be isolated to neglected neighborhoods. It will appear in cul-de-sacs, in two-income households that simply can't keep up. And what happens to society when a nation can't eat? History gives us clues. Social unrest in the 1930s. Food riots in the 1970s. Analysts at Brookings warn that if food inflation persists, widespread civil unrest cannot be ruled out. Already, surveys show 68% of Americans blame government policies for rising costs, while 52% believe corporations are price gouging. Anger is building, and hunger has always been gasoline on the fire of protest. This is the America we are sleepwalking into. A nation where grocery shopping becomes a luxury, where breadlines return in digital form, where millions live one empty fridge away from despair. The Great Depression isn't just history, it's a warning. And in 2025, that warning is flashing red.
All right, so that takes me to this is the book of 2 Ezra, chapter 15, verse 19. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their house with a sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. Right, and these are the times that that we're fastly approaching, man. So Akim, Akwath, stay prayed up, man. Because we're already in Jacob's trouble, but shit hitting the fan, man. That's about to come soon, man. And we're seeing right now Esau coming down with that great wrath, going after the northern and southern kingdom, with ICE and the National Guard. So so expect more, more things to pop up, because that MOTB is around the corner, man. Because like during these times, you never know when chaos is about to pop off, man. Because because things are escalating, things are moving fast, right? So. Oh, but we know Esau's latter end, so we're gonna get the book of Job. All right, this is the book of Job, chapter 20, verse 23. When he's about to fill his belly, when he's about to micro see everyone, when he's about to lay his hands on the elect, right? Yahweh Bashim Yahushai shall cast the fear of his wrath upon him and shall rain upon him while he's eating, right? So once he thinks he's about to micro see everyone, Yahweh Bashim Yahushai he's gonna put the spirit on these other nations, right? To send them ICBM nuclear missiles, to destroy Babylon the Great, and during that time, the elect are going to get beamed up. Babylon's going to get destroyed, along with Esau, these heathens, and these 2/3, man, and the 1/3, the 1/3 is going to get beamed up, and so is the mixed multitude, right? While the rebels get purged, across worldwide, and once the elect gets those new spiritual bodies, right, which the laws are going to be written in their inward part, or that's when Yahweh Shai and the elect are going to come down, establish the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven, as it says in the Lord's prayer, and all these other nations, they're gonna get put into subjection and into captivity, all right, and that's gonna be the kingdom of heaven right there. All right, so with that, we're gonna end off the lesson right there. Hope this lesson has been edifying, to you Akim and you for you Akwath. And with that, we like to say, Call Halayim La, Abanawa, Yahweh,
Yahweh,
Bahashem,
Hashem,
Yahweh Shai,
Yahushai,
Bahashem,
Hashem,
Ruka Kadash.
Kakadash.
All right, double honors and respect to our apostles and elders, a great millstone, who well and taught us his truth. I would also like to say peace and salutations to the Lord's elect, the hopeful elect and 1/3, his brother Salah.
Yo, what's up?
And we have, brother Saram, brother Nawa here. With that, we'd like to say
Shalom.
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 Shalom.